Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek, and I'm here to answer the question, what if you took the original Castlevania, ported it over to the Super Nintendo, and then changed the sprite set to have more of a 16-bit aesthetic? Well, Rumbleminze, one of the developers that loves bringing NES games over to the Super Nintendo, decided to figure exactly that out and has released over on Infidelity's Discord on their own channel a work-in-progress preview build of Castlevania, basically remade for the Super Nintendo. And I totally get it, sometimes figuring out who Rumbleminze and Infidelity are, because they both work on very similar projects, can be hard, and at this point in time I think it might just be two people in a trench coat pretending to be different entities completely when they actually work together. All jokes aside, the two developers do incredible work, and it really is impressive how they bring NES originals to Super Nintendo with improvements and everything else. And this one is compatible with MSU1 soundtracks as well, but I actually went with the original soundtrack here just because I wanted that NES vibe with the 16-bit aesthetic. And honestly, if you love Castlevania and you want to play a new version of it, this one is definitely going to be for you, because I will say the sprites here are lovingly recreated and really do have a completely different vibe, while also blending in really nicely with the overall level layout structure. And that is not an easy thing whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying it is quote-unquote easy to port an NES game to Super Nintendo, but that is a very technical operation. Where bringing in new sprites and reworking the art is 100% an artistic endeavor, not a technical one, and I find that to be something where people actually stumble more than bringing the ports over. But I will say Rumbleminze has done a 10 out of 10 job here, bringing over both the 8-bit and 16-bit aesthetic all at the same time, is giving us a prettier version of a game that we know, love, and remember from back in the day. And that is no easy feat, so Rumbleminze definitely deserves to be commended on just how successful they were when it comes to making something like Castlevania look like both an 8-bit and 16-bit game at the same time. But you leave me a comment down below and you tell me so far with what you're watching, is this an art style you're into or not? I definitely feel like most people will appreciate it, if not for the art, then for the effort that goes involved in it. And as we move through the game, obviously, it is still Castlevania from start to finish, and it is one of the best NES games ever made, and now I would say it's one of the best NES games ever made. Konami absolutely nailed the brief when it came to the design of this game, and this is what launched an entire franchise. And here, with the Super Nintendo aesthetic, but not going too heavy-handed, it really does feel like a game that could have been a launch game for the Super Nintendo, and not something that was an actual NES game. And that is not, again, an easy goal to achieve. And with this port, you have different color palettes and profiles for the colorways. You have the ability to add in whatever MSU1 soundtrack you want. It really does give you almost unlimited ability to play the game and listen to the game the way you would like to. But I figured having the NES soundtrack along with the actual 16-bit aesthetic would be a fun juxtaposition between the old and the new. But that really is the great thing about all of these ROM hacks, bringing them over to the Super Nintendo. There's so many fun remakes and renditions of classic Castlevania music that you can kind of really pick and choose what you want. For me, the hard rock soundtrack is 10 out of 10, just because it has that absolute 80s hair metal vibe thing going on, and I do love that. And this game is going to play exactly as you'd expect. You can 100% stunlock Medusa in the corner or anywhere else with the holy water, basically getting a free win. A big thanks to Kilter Music for helping with the capture this week as well, because I was in Vermont on quasi-vacation, so I wasn't actually available to grab the footage. But Kilter was able to get all the way to the end of the game and fight Dracula, so apparently he is decent at video games after all. And Fleamen here, every bit as annoying as they ever have been, and that again is kind of a joke to say that this is still just Castlevania. If you love the game back in the day and you want to play it on Super Nintendo with an MSU1 soundtrack, with increased performance as far as the graphics are concerned, and having no slowdown whatsoever, and this version of the game is going to be 100% for you. If you didn't love the original Castlevania, then there's nothing here that's ever going to convince you that it is a game to love, because it's not changing up the gameplay formula whatsoever. It is just making it look prettier and sound better than it ever did before. Speaking of sound, I know that it has MSU1 support, but I really felt it was going to be fun to give you the original NES soundtrack along with the improved visuals. That way you can kind of get a sense of the old and a sense of the new. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds, and I'll be right back with a lot more Castlevania on Super Nintendo fun. I mean, also, you can't go wrong with the original NES music, and it really is where we got a sense of what Castlevania was truly going to be, because this is a franchise that's still with us. We have a brand new Castlevania game in development on the way. And I'm finally glad that Konami remembered that Castlevania does exist, because it's been a very long time since we got a new release into the franchise. And I know I talk a lot about static recomps on the channel and different sort of decompilation based source ports and a lot of emulation updates as well. But these NES and Super Nintendo conversions definitely are their own little domain and own little fiefdom of fun, because between Infidelity and Rumbleminze we have so many different fun releases bringing these games over to Super Nintendo. In a lot of instances they really do fix a lot of the game's problems from NES moving over to Super Nintendo. There'd be sprite flickering, there would be slowdown. Basically some of these games would push the NES to its absolute breaking point, and you would have that showing up and suffering in the gameplay department. And that is something you're not going to have to deal with on the Super Nintendo whatsoever. There's going to be no sprite flicker, there really isn't any slowdown, it is just a smoother experience. And it really makes you think what other games could be brought over from NES to Super Nintendo that would be amazing. So that is my question for the video. If you could snap your fingers and make one game show up on Super Nintendo from NES with improved graphics, which one would it be? And honestly, I would probably say Mother, but we just got not one but two different versions of that being remade, one for Super Nintendo, so kind of my pick actually got taken up. And if you haven't played the remake of Mother on Super Nintendo yet, I did a video on it and it is 10 out of 10 amazing. I played some of it while I was traveling back east to help out with some family matters, and I still absolutely love that game and love it even more so now that it's on Super Nintendo. But Castlevania is just such a unique experience, because if you never played the original, you really are missing out. And you'll see here as we go through, the art style really is a perfect match for what the NES wanted to do. And I can't stress enough, as a working artist of 22 years, somebody who spent their entire life working in art, mostly film obviously, getting the artistic tone correct on something like this is a near impossible task. It really is hard to be able to make something new that feels like the source material while improving on it at the same time. So Rumbleminze, if you watch the video, you 10 out of 10 nailed the brief on getting this art in here and really making it feel like something that always existed. Because the number one compliment I can give to any of these projects, if it feels like something that would have been released on a cartridge by the developers and publishers back in the day, then you know you've done a good job, and that's exactly what we're getting here. And like I said earlier, if you've never played the original Castlevania before, maybe you got your start in the 16-bit era, definitely check out all the Castlevania games on NES, even Simon's Quest. Yes, it's a little bit janky, but in all the best ways possible. And Kilter made a classic mistake there by jumping into a pit, a Castlevania pro move if there ever was one. But I just love these projects, and it really goes to show how much love there is out there for these classic franchises and pieces of hardware, because the NES, it's a system that even I didn't really grow up with. Yes, it was out when I was a kid, but I was playing way more video games in the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis era, so even I get to discover new stuff sometimes. But one more soundtrack sample, old versus new, and I'll be right back to tell you how to play this one if you want to check out the preview today. So if you want to play this demo version, and again, it is a full game, it is just kind of a test release, you have to go over to Infidelity's Discord server and then go down to Rumbleminze's channel, which again leads me to believe that they are just basically a two-headed Hydra, same body, different heads, different projects. All jokes aside, it's a Jekyll and Hyde sort of situation, except both of them are extremely nice people, and that's always a win for retro gaming. And in an era where people are getting really tired of modern gaming, all feeling copy and paste samey, and when Sony basically takes away everything we own and tells us we're going to own nothing and they're going to screw us over, stuff like retro magic like this really does keep the fun alive, and that's why I always have spots for it on the channel, even if this one might move over the 8 p.m. bonus video slot, just because there's so much to talk about recently. I'm running out of space to actually schedule it on the channel, but that is definitely a good problem to have, because anytime we get more classic games made better and made more fun, that's going to be a win, not just for retro gaming, but for all of us as well. So definitely check this one out, and leave me a comment down below and tell me your all-time favorite Castlevania game. For me, it is a tie between Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, but I guess I could say favorite Metroidvania and favorite standard game. But I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.